What's going on, good people of the internet? It is time for OnComicsGrounds.com's flagship podcast, Panel to Panel, where a bunch of folks shoot the breeze and talk about comic books and such. We are back once again. We are not letting the virus stop us from talking about the books we love and the things that we care about. We are here once again for an amazing episode of Panel to Panel. Don't forget that you can listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts. I said Apple. Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, YouTube. Are we on iHeart yet? Because I sent the iHeart radio application in like 2 weeks ago.
I think Blurred Grounds is on iHeart, but I don't think we are yet.
Okay, because I sent Panel to Panel and Living on the Edge the day after, so like I don't know if they're in yet, but like we're working on it, and I'm waiting. We're still in the review process for Pandora, so like those are a work in process. But you can check us out on those different platforms. You can also follow us on Twitter at PTP_podcast. You can check out the website on Comics Ground on Twitter and Instagram at On Comics Ground. And you can check out the website every weekday for brand new content like reviews, previews, solicitations, and more. So we're going to go ahead and dive straight into this. But before we do, my name, as you might know, but if you listen to this podcast regularly, is James Portis. To my left, we have the man who is somehow not dead with his giant afro, hanging out in California, Mr. Travis Tucker. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Don't let him saying California changes anything. I'm not near the coast. That's where the cool people are. The rest is awful.
Oh my god. Anyway, and then we have the amazing woman who busted her ass getting tonight's podcast together. She is not going to let the virus stop her from being a badass. We have Mary. How you doing today?
I have a glass of Glenlivet and I am fine.
Hey, I feel it. I got my Stella Artois cider ready to go. We're going to have us a good evening. We are going to de-stress, talk about a topic that is amazing for us all, and I'm going to have a good time. So, Mary, I'm going to let you kick it on in and let's get it started.
Okay, well, we decided that it might be a little fun since, International Women's Day was a few days back. And, we meant to do this episode earlier, but then I got the flu and nobody wants to hear that, Just keep a bucket next to me and just throw up while recording. No, nobody wants to hear that. So we decided to push it off, and we thought it would be fun to kind of revisit it tonight. And I think it would be fun to have kind of a roundtable discussion with a few history lessons peppered throughout, excuse me. But, because, women who are far smarter than I have done great deep dives into the history of, women creating comic books. There's an excellent podcast called Stuff You Missed in History Class. They are phenomenal. I listened to them while doing the dishes. They did a great 2-parter about women in comics, and I definitely think you should check it out. And they are much smarter than I am. So I have a glass of scotch, and we're just going to talk about it.
Let's go.
Now, there are 2 women that I do want to point out before we really get into things. Is that and we're kind of gonna keep this limited to the American comic book industry, so within the foundational framework of the big 2, not strictly the big 2, but you know what I mean when I say American comic books.
Yeah.
But women have been involved since the beginning of the Golden Age. We have Dorothy Woolfolk, and with my stutter, it is real difficult to say that. Is largely credited as the first woman in the American comic book industry. She started at one of the companies that united to become DC, and in historical moments like this, I do just refer to it as DC. because that's just easier because you have national and then the other. So I just typically refer to it as DC. So if somebody wants to try and fact check me, here is that disclaimer for you. But she started as an editor at DC in the early 40s, and she's actually credited with the created the framework for Kryptonite. She thought that Superman's invulnerability was kind of dull, and suggested that it would be more interesting if perhaps he suffered adverse effects from a fragment of his home planet. And then a little while later, we saw the introduction of kryptonite as we know it. So that's kind of a little fun tidbit of how, they kind of helped build these things. And she eventually left to work at Timely for a little while, which, if you don't know, Timely would later become Marvel Comics as we know it, but ended up returning to DC sometime in the 70s. And, she worked on Wonder Woman, she worked on Supergirl, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, and some of the romance comics. So she came back to DC years later and kind of continued that. And the other woman that I want to mention tonight is Joy Murchison Kelly, or Joy Hummel, as I usually refer to her. That's a name you might not have heard before. She probably is the most important woman in comics that you've never heard of. She was the first woman to write Wonder Woman. She was a student of William Moulton Marston, Wonder Woman's creator, and ended up ghostwriting several issues when Marston was sick and dying, because Marston died in 1947. So she ghostwrote issues of Wonder Woman from 1944 to his death in 1947. And she remained uncredited for decades. I mean, her name just completely disappeared after Marston died. And actually won the Bill Finger Award at San Diego Comic-Con in 2018. And she will be 96 here in a few weeks. I think April 4th is her birthday. And there's actually a great little video from one of the newspapers from 2018 where she kind of, she talks about it, and, she talks about how much she loves Wonder Woman and what Marston wanted to do with Wonder Woman. And I made the guys watch it beforehand just to kind
of... We'll include the notes.
Yeah, we'll include that. But it's just kind of... You can just see how much it meant to her, because in the video she talks about winning the Bill Finger Award as being like winning an Academy Award for her. And I think it was such a great moment to see a woman get the recognition she deserves for helping to create the framework for a character that's still here 5 years later. I mean, we know the legendary names like Flo Steinberg, Louise Simonson, Gail Simone, all the others. We know those names. But I think these were just two women from the various earliest years of the Golden Age that I thought would be fun to mention.
I mean, I knew about Joy Hummel, but I did not know about Dorothy Woolfolk. That's crazy that she started out that early with it as an editor.
Oh, we might have to do a research episode into the early editorial history of DC, because it is absolutely fascinating. I mean, there were pro athletes that National/DC used to reach out to sponsor, like Wonder Woman issues, and then there was the Wonder Women of History segment that they used to put in the back of Wonder Woman issues. Like, it was absolutely fascinating.
Oh wow!
And then it changed when Wortham attacked.
That Avatar reference.
Frederick Wortham made comic books sad.
Then everything changed when Wortham attacked.
We might actually have to double back some of the old Seduction of the Innocent episodes on here. I think.
Please, yes. I would love to just spend like a half hour roasting Wortham. That would be so much fun.
And see, the worst part about Wortham is that he actually did really good work in his psychological field. Because, he provided low-cost psychiatric help to, people in Harlem in, the 30s. And so, how do you weight that against, pushing the narratives that, Wonder Woman was turning girls into lesbians because she was independent and strong?
Oh, my God.
Well,
Yeah.
no, well, like, that was the whole thing that happened because Wortham went to the government and said that Wonder Woman was being too independent. He said Batman and Robin were a gay couple and like making them turning the men gay. And then what did he do about Superman, Mary?
He said Superman was basically pushing Nazi philosophy and was a fascist, even though, Siegel and Schuster being his creators,
We're Jewish.
This guy's on the money.
Mhm.
And then he was like, we need to get rid of horror comics and werewolfism, and I'm like, bro, this is too much.
Wow, he sounds like a real kooky guy. Honestly.
Yeah. And the actual book is hysterical because talking about because you guys know anytime something violent happens, video games are usually the thing to blame right now.
Yep.
It's the same argument, saying that crime comics were going to add to juvenile delinquency and sexual confusion and deviancy and all of these kinds of things, and it is just the sheer moral panic that it created was insane. And the comic industry kind of had to band together, and the Comic Code Authority was self-censorship to prevent the US government from coming in and censoring it. Like, there were congressional hearings about this.
Yep.
Like, the whole thing was just absolutely batshit bonkers.
Wait, if Wortham's the Fire Nation, would that make Stan Lee the Avatar because he's the one that finally broke the comics code?
Maybe. I don't know, we'd have to lay that out. See, I almost feel like Jack Kirby would be the Avatar because he just kind of created everything.
That's true. That's very true. I'll give you that.
Anyway, like I said, I've had more than a little scotch tonight, so I'm a little loosey-goosey. So if I go off on a tangent, one of you guys might have to pull me back in.
I got you.
And kind of jumping into the topic tonight of just kind of discussing particularly women who create comic books. And there are a lot of notions that, personally me as a woman think is dumb that we see pushed a lot because women have loved comic books since the beginning. There are countless books from the Golden Age where you have, lady scientists, solving mysteries with Jill Trent, Science Sleuth. Betty Bates, Lady at Law, who was a lawyer who knew jujitsu and had a gun and went around busting criminals. Fun fact about Betty Bates, before Daredevil, before Matt Murdock, she was the longest running lawyer in comics.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and so, we've had, not to mention, Wonder Woman running around. So there were a lot of female characters running around. And they weren't just romance comics. Because, when you think of it, my ferret is throwing a fit right now. Oh my god, between Scotch and the ferret, I completely lost my train of thought.
When you think about it, women and whatnot.
When you think about, women in comics, you tend to think a lot about romance comics. And the romance comics really didn't step into prevalence until the Silver Age, after Wortham. So I think that there is that interesting divide there with what happens when you combine comic books with moral panic. Mm-hmm. And that will have to be a discussion for a later date, or I could sit here and go on for hours about, a lot of it being conjecture. But I think the first question that I really kind of want to talk about tonight is that top tier, and these questions are really in no order, it's just kind of what I think would be interesting to talk about. Top tier books of the big two, and I mean books like Batman, Superman, Justice League, Avengers, Captain America. You guys know the books I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They have seldomly been written by women. I think the most famous case is probably Louise Simonson's legendary run with Superman, and she is one of the best Superman writers. Why do you think that is? I'm interested to kind of see the range of perspective.
Travis, you want to go first?
On no.
Okay, I got you. See, I think, and I think a lot of it has to like sort of like coincides, like is it also adjacent to a lot of the conversations we've been having with people of color writing comic books recently, where you have them being put into a box and them not thinking they can tell men's stories, and it get like my immediate thought is like some jerk dude going, "Ha, you're a woman, you don't know how we get down," and it's like that kind of thought process that I think some idiot editor probably thinks that like someone can't walk in and tell an amazing story. Like we have Kelly Sue DeConnick right now that's kicking butt on Aquaman, and it's like, yeah, she wrote a story about Mara having a new child because she hasn't had a new child since the 90s, but like it's still a great story, and Aquaman's still the main character. So it's like the thought process of saying that women can't write a book for men or for male readers is like pretty dumb. Hell, you have I was watching a documentary the other day where like I forget her name, but like a woman was the first one to help pitch Sesame Street. So and like she was one of the main writers on the show, and she was telling stories for every kid of every age. So the idea of saying that women can't really write stories for men kind of baffles me. But the track record with the big two obviously shows that it's probably some of the thought process. That's kind of where my headspace is at for that one.
I mean, why I wanted to go second is because it feels like exactly what you said in the first place. Like when you take these iconic characters that are generally written by men and are men will be like, "You're gonna girl up my man," and it's frustrating, to be honest with you, because it doesn't, like, your gender doesn't determine if you can write a good story or not, and it's always treated as such, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely, and quality writing really knows no gender.
Like Dennis Hopeless wrote an amazing Spider-Woman run where she was pregnant, but we don't judge him for it. Like, what's the freaking problem?
And Louise,
and what about the men that write women terribly, like Brian Azzarello, for example?
Ooh, preach!
Love it. Sorry, his Wonder Woman was terrible.
His Birds of Prey was canceled.
Oh no!
But he still gets to write women.
However, will we?
You know what I mean?
Though I am digging the new Cassandra costume for the new Birds of Prey book.
I like that bad.
It's pretty dope. But yeah, like, and also it's like that's what I'm saying. Like the idea, and plus we have men. I can't get my IPA bottle open. We have men who have been writing women in comics forever. Like, granted, Marston created Wonder Woman, but that doesn't mean Marston is the only person who can tell a Wonder Woman story. And it's like you have men who have been spent like not even Marston, because Marston was a trailblazer, but like you have men who have been writing these like overly sexualized women for years, but then they think they're the overall authority on how to write a woman in comics. But does that mean women can't write men? No, it's the exact opposite. So like I don't know.
I think I probably should have like organized these questions a bit better. Again, Scotch brain is running here. But
you're good.
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that comic books have been very heavily gendered since the Silver Age. Obviously, I wasn't reading Golden Age comics at the time, and there are very few people left who can tell us what that culture was like. But from going back and looking at the, Golden Age comics I've been able to get my hands on, and I'm not even talking, BC. Marvel largely did not exist in the Golden Age, and I'm tired of explaining that to people. That the only real Golden Age heroes that Marvel had were Captain America, Namor, and the Human Torch.
He was a robot.
Yeah, those are their big three Golden Age heroes. So Marvel, really, as we know it, did not exist in the Golden Age. Excuse me, and so I tend to leave them out a lot because it's dumb. And I refuse to refer to the Silver Age as the Golden Age of Marvel, because no, that's not how history works.
That's not how that works at all.
I mean, obviously, that's not to disrespect Marvel or anything like that. It's just that it gets confusing for a lot of people.
I mean, I know we devoted a whole episode last week to Robin, which, funnily enough, they want to say that Batman and Robin were gay, and the gay guy wanted to do an episode about Robin. But anyway, I think
it's proven it, James. You're just ruining everything.
I've proven Marston. I've proven it right. But I think I lost my train of thought because I made a joke. Where was I going with that? Where did I start that thought at?
Maybe we all shouldn't be drinking.
No, it's okay. I've only had one bottle. Anyway, I think the big issue that I see is that, like, just because like I've had a couple people tell me that, oh, you guys are just the DC podcast. Like, no. I love everything. Hell, we did a whole episode of Wolverine. We have other X-Men ideas floating around. I mean, we are about to do a whole thing about Wildstorm, but like that don't mean we don't love the big two. Like we have some indie ideas coming up. So
I mean, we do have a clear bias, but
a little bit. But like we still can't like both of our children.
I mean, yes, we have a preference, and everybody does. I mean,
and if they say they don't, they're lying to you.
Yeah, I mean, because it's just how that's just how these things works. Like, yes, I like DC, I like Marvel, but I like DC more. So everybody has a preference, and the three of us just kind of bond over the same DC here. We bond over the same DC heroes. So, sometimes we go a little too hard one way and not enough the other.
Yeah.
Gotham for life.
Yes.
Most def. I mean, though I really need them to like put Rick Grayson away for a while, please.
But
eventually, he has to do Talon things.
Well, no. Now he's not even Talon. If you read last week's issue, or not last week, last month's issue of Nightwing, and then this week's coming up issue of Nightwing, we're finally getting some progression. But it's like now Joker War is a thing, and Tynan's just like, hey, can you hold off a little bit longer? And I'm like, no, Tynan, I love you, but no.
Rick Grayson is pretty bad.
My name's not Rick. Okay, sorry, Mary.
You're good. Oh, that whole saga has just been hysterical to listen to. But, reading what I have from the Golden Age, yes, there is a separation between quote-unquote boys comics and quote-unquote girls comics. But at the end of the day, it was mostly, for a good chunk of it, punching Nazis kind of thing. And Wonder Woman punched just as many Nazis as, Batman and Superman did. But it was after Seduction of the Innocent that I think we really started to see kind of the separation. I mean, romance comics got really huge in the late 50s, early 60s, through to the 70s. I mean, romance comics were popular for a long time. And both companies have actually, at different points in time, kind of tried to revive their romance serials. Because DC has become much more tongue-in-cheek about it. Because the last couple of years, they've done like a cosmic romance Valentine's Day issue. Mm-hmm. And Marvel famously bungled it with Trouble. Yeah. Trouble was a Spider-Man-esque comic that was kind of meant to be a revival of the old Marvel romance comics, and
it did not work.
No Aunt May and Ben Parker bone, and then Aunt May is Peter's mom, and it wasn't in continuity, but it was very clear.
I say it is.
Wait.
Okay, so there was this thing. There was this thing where they pitched it as a rival romance novel, like Mary just said, and the idea was that May banged Ben Parker and created Peter, and the whole time they just hid it from him. So it's like,
and then Aunt May gave the baby to Ben and his wife, and that baby is strongly implied to be Peter.
Well,
Yeah.
If you can find a copy, it is an absolutely insane read. Absolutely insane. It was written by Mark Millar, if that helps.
It sounds flat
I feel-
out wild.
I feel like that makes a lot of sense if it was written by Mark Millar.
Yeah, it does.
But, it was kind of after that, Seduction of the Innocent divide where we really kind of started to see romance comics become popular. And they were. I'm not sitting here trying to argue that romance comics weren't popular, but I don't think that the comics industry quite understood that girls were still reading superhero comics. And I'm gonna say some things that might be deemed controversial or what have you.
When have we not been controversial?
Fair point. I feel like it was sometime in the 90s that comic books kind of forgot that girls like comics too. Because the 90s was a very special time in comic books. Where, we just had the speculator market collapse. Marvel was staring bankruptcy in the face. Like, it was not a good time. And that's when we kind of really started to see the hypersexualization of them. Of, the infamous Sue Storm costume where the 4 is cut out of her boobs.
I hate that suit so much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Have you seen that shit?
Oh, no lie, I'm excited to talk about neckbeard artists.
Oh god. So I think it was really that time period where comics just kind of forgot that women liked them too. And a big argument that we see pushed by part of the fan base is that comic books are for men. That they have always been for men, they are written by men, for men, just men.
That's a lie.
That, we've kind of started...
Oh my god.
Oh,
I knew you never seen it. I knew you freaking never saw it. I knew it.
Who is this artist? I feel like it's the same guy who drew Starfire in like the early 2000s.
James just threw up a picture of the Sue Storm Fantastic Four costume I was just talking about. She's got her stomach.
I literally just typed Sue Storm boob window into the thing, and half of Google Images was Power Girl, and half of it was Sue Storm.
Oh my god, that is terrible.
So take that image in your mind, Travis, and then compare it to superhero costumes from the 80s. Do you kind of see the bridge that I'm talking about after the collapse?
Yeah, this is not a bridge. This is a cliff.
Yeah, because even Starfire in the 80s was very risque, but I feel like there was something that wasn't quite as sexual about it. Maybe it's just George Perez. Maybe it's just his artwork that made it seem a bit more tasteful. But this just seems like on display for booby purposes, I guess.
And like no other reason at all.
Yeah. This is not going to be an episode that I'm going to listen back to. I'm just going to tell you that now.
What?
Too much scotch.
It's like that Starfire costume where she has basically like an ace bandage. Like
oh god,
are
you talking about the new 52 costume?
Well,
Yes.
there was that Red Hood and the Outlaws #1 where like the first issue came out and you could just see straight nipple. You couldn't see nothing else. And then they went back in the trade in the digital. We're like, okay, cool. We'll cover it up. We'll put some opacity on there. I'm like, bro, it's too late. It's too late.
Michael Turner, I think. That's what
It was
I
either
think.
Michael Turner or it was Rockefeller. I can't remember which one it was.
That's what I mean when I say like the neckbeard artists. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
These characters are so much more interesting than just the physical features that the artist found attractive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's exactly like to go back into Mary's point. Like these people just forgot that girls read comics. You know.
And now I just want to be upfront with the fact that I don't think that there is anything wrong with sex appeal in comics. I don't, not one bit.
Oh, no. Like, and then there was even the whole conversation when Captain Marvel happened, and you had all the dumbass dudes calling her Carl Manvers because she wore a whole bodysuit. And it's like, bro, are you for real? Like, are we really doing this? And like, it was like 2018 when it started, and it was like, why can't we have the girl be in a full bodysuit? Like, does she need to have the bodysuit wrap around her whole breast just so she has the accent? Like, no, stop it.
But like, I don't think there's anything wrong with sex appeal in comics, and I think that kind of makes the fantasy of it a bit more fun at times because, to a certain degree, men are just as sexualized. I mean, your average man does not look like Bruce Wayne or Superman. I mean, just ripped to shreds, muscles on top of muscles. Like your biceps have
bazillion abs.
Yeah.
I mean, we tried to put his penis out in the world and everyone got mad.
I bought that book just for that. Just to kind of hold on to it and just, can I sell it later?
It's like $50
Do you want Batman
now.
with dick that's not another person? Batman damned. Issue 1.
But I don't want you guys to think I'm sitting here kind of like, clutching my pearls crying sexism because, like, I like looking at sexy women in comics too. I like women. And so that probably skewers me a little bit because I kind of just, it's really hard to describe my attitude about it. That, you look at the Sue Storm boob window thing, I think that kind of crosses the line into a little too much, in my opinion. But, the Miss Marvel swimsuit costume, I love that costume just because of how ridiculous it is. Like, she's wearing a one piece with a lightning bolt and then inexplicably a sash for a soft feminine touch. Like,
Yep.
Right. And then, like, now that we're on the subject of boob windows, Power Girl.
I can't with that thing.
Yeah, but wasn't there like that whole controversy for years where like different artists just kept making her boobs bigger in the boob window?
There is a great crossover with Power Girl and Wonder Woman that Gail Simone wrote, and it is absolutely hysterical. Because at one point they have to team up, and it's been a number of years since I've read it, but Gail Simone kind of likes to play with the sexualization of women in comic books. Because Power Girl makes kind of a meta line about how one time she was eating an ice cream cone, and she made some nerd very rich. So, you think about Power Girl eating a vanilla ice cream cone and then things that happen after that.
Oh.
And so it's kind of like, meta commentary from Gail, but it's done in a very tongue-in-cheek kind of way. And I think I like to kind of line it up with the way Gail Simone plays with it a little bit. That, sexy people are just going to look sexy in comics, but I think that there is a line.
Yeah.
Like, I just put Sue Storm because we're gonna have to tweet this picture of Sue in the costume since we're using it so heavily as a reference. But like, why cut out the stomach window at all and just like not make it a bikini top? Like,
tactical advantage.
Oh my god.
I mean, is it supporting to keep her boobs up? Like,
I don't know, bro. Like it looks like someone tried to make Sue Starfire and it just didn't work.
And why do we need the bands that are above? Wait, are those blue bands connected to the?
They're not. They're just there.
What is she just? Oh, good lord!
Like they're like sweatbands for her thighs, and it's like, the fuck are you doing, bro?
For her thighs.
That's like, am I wrong?
Okay. She has nothing covering her shoulders. She has a boob window. She has a stomach cutout, but she needs that high collar.
Yeah, that's some Jim Lee New 52 shit right there.
Like it's just like it hurts on so many levels. Like,
speaking of Jim Lee New 52
she's gotta wear evening gloves.
Oh my god. All the way up to her biceps too. Oh no.
Sue, honey, who hurt you?
You know, to kind
Is
of
this
drive
how
the
she
point
has-
home a little further, I found looking at Michael Turner's Starfire.
Oh no.
They have Starfire Bishujo figures, and I am freaked out.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
no.
Those
Oh,
things
no.
creep me the hell out. It is the only Batwoman statue I don't have.
Oh no. How do you spell that?
Bishoujo.
What the fuck
It's
am I
not-
about to look up?
You're about to look up some ooh-woo shit.
Oh no, honey, no. Mary Marvel, what have they done to you?
They get me, man. They get me.
Oh, Mary, no. Raven, honey, no. Oh. That Batwoman kind of looked fly though. I will that dude looked kind of cool.
She has like
What?
she has like two different heads, and it weirds me out.
Yeah, this is a category I should have never Googled.
Yo, I kind of want this Tim Drake Red Robin one though.
Wait, a Red Robin Bishujo figure?
He's winking at me too. Damn it! Oh, thank God it's $80. I can't afford it. $80. Oh.
But, taking everything that we've talked about, we have the tastefully revealing, as I like to call it, just costumes that look cool for the sake of looking cool versus, this Sue Storm costume, which is, I don't know. And
it's like,
it's meant to put everything on display. Like, it's.
Yeah. But and don't get me wrong, you can make women look attractive without making them look like hoes. Like, and also don't get me wrong. I like adult workers. Y'all have y'all place, and y'all are valid. I'm just saying, like,
taking a hole, James.
I know, right? But it's like, what I'm saying is, like, look at someone like Art Germ, who drew an amazing cover for when Fantastic Four came back, and Sue, full body suit, looked good compared to like the rest of the team. That like Art Germ can make anyone look good. Because God damn, Ben Grimm looked fucking awesome in that art. So it's like, I think we need to stop acting as if we have to like cut out pieces of their costumes to make them look sexy.
Mm-hmm. Because
can Emma Frost get a full shirt someday?
But I mean, in comparison, look at Adam Hughes's Black Canary, particularly on the Justice League of America cover. And, because she's got the leather jacket, she has kind of, that black swimsuit thing going on, and then she has the fishnets. And the fishnets are a huge part of her character, and I love the fishnets. So I think there is a difference when a costume is done tastefully and when it is done to be overt. I think is the line that I'm trying to cross. Is the line that I'm not trying to cross, but I'm trying to explain. And I think it's a very fine line, and I think it honestly depends on the intent. But, taking all of these costumes and all of these theories that we've talked about after the speculator crash, and after we saw the extreme 90s where, women suddenly had no internal organs and
Liefeld.
And men were larger than they should be.
Also Liefeld.
Why do you think that comics pulled back so hard to try and say comic books are for men? Why? Because, I mean,
because
women...
of this exact picture in the chat.
So like we can even mark the point, like, because you have the early 2000s where they were kind of like straddling the line of like, hey, comics can be for both, but like there was a lack of women comics. Granted, that's when like Gail Simone had Birds of Prey, so there was still some good stuff going on at that point. But like the definitive line where it was debatable if DC specifically gave a crap about women was the New 52. And the reason why I say that is, yes, we had good things like Birds of Prey and Gale back on Batgirl and stuff like that, but that costume, Wonder Woman eating a freaking choker because of her costume on the Justice League, how dumb they made her at the beginning, where she was like new to the world and didn't know what the fuck was going on, and like, yeah, St. Mary just hugged because she knows, and it's like, Or like how we talked about last week on the Robin episode, how in the first issue of Red Hood and the Outlaws, Starfire is the dumbest alien bimbo you could ever meet in your entire life, who just walks up to Roy Harper and goes, "You want to have sex with me?" And it's like they wrote the books with the mindset of, we just have like teenage edgelords writing our books, so we don't care about the women representation. Like, Supergirl was a freaking rage monster during the New 52, to the point they like went in a completely different direction and made her more like the TV show when they rebooted her in the DC Rebirth.
I actually kind of like Red Lantern Supergirl.
Oh, you like that?
I like Red Lantern Supergirl.
Okay, fair enough.
Is this the Supergirl that was in the Hell on Earth arc? Because I definitely liked her.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember that like she was this like rage monster even before she put on the Red Lantern ring, and like no one bought the book, and I knew there was some negativity there.
Well, she was good on Hell on Earth, and Diana beat her ass. So
Mm-hmm.
Travis, what are your thoughts on like the men only comics thing?
I think it's pretty much like the nail on the head of the whole thing. And what's worse is that like it doesn't just affect the women in comics, it affects the men too. With this is how I imagine myself, with a bazillion abs and random alien hot women asking to have sex with me. You know what I mean? It feels real James T. Kirky from my perspective. And
The sexy green Omega women.
yeah, and I would personally like some more, not Age of Ultron Joss Whedon, but Firefly Joss Whedon in my comics. That's what I need. Where the women are, like in Firefly, they're possibly sexualized in a few parts of the show, but they all stand on their own. Every single one.
Mm-hmm.
From the engineer to, God, the baddest female alive. Kaylee, of course. I forget Wash's wife's name. Zoe. Okay.
Gina Torres, just
Dude.
But
just loading up shotguns like, I'm not getting out of here alive, y'all. It's fine.
But I think I kind of figured out how I want to put it. I think there is a difference when a woman in comics, like Black Canary, a woman who looks sexy versus a woman who looks exploitative. Because, I mean, just the comparison, because, we're going to have to put up all these pictures that James has in the chat.
Yep.
Because we have that Hughes cover of Black Canary. She's cracking her knuckles and she's like, okay, who's next? And then you have Starfire. And it's just...
God bless you, Kenneth Rucker, for it, but like, no.
And it's just, I still, as a woman, as a lesbian, as a comic book fan, I find myself drawn to the Black Canary cover more because there's something more interesting about it. Like, this is a character I want to get to know more than booby orange girl Starfire, and being a comic book fan, there's so much more to Starfire than just that costume,
Yes, there is.
Like, it's really frustrating. And, I like sexy women, and I like, sexy women in comics, but there is a line where it just kind of crosses over into gross. And to kind of piggyback on what Travis is saying is that not only are these kinds of things damaging to women, they're also really damaging to men. Because, it almost, and this is going to be some conjecture on my part, but I feel like it tries to push the narrative that all men are chest thumping, gotta see who's the manliest.
Now that we're men in tights.
But I mean,
they're all real docs. They're all Brainiac 5.
I've had Scotch and I don't give a shit anymore, but I feel like it kind of boils men down to the notion that y'all have to see who has the bigger dick. And, you have no other thoughts other than muscles and boobs. Like, I feel like it's an insult to women to have them portrayed in such kind of a gross, exploitative way, but it's also an insult to men saying that, you can't possibly be interested in a storyline if Starfire's not wearing an ace bandage across her shoulders and pasties.
I'm still more insulted that Carol Danvers doesn't have a status quo. I don't give a crap that she's freaking sexy. I get it that like you want to have her do cool shit, Kelly Thompson, but can we get her a status quo, dang flabbit?
That'd be too difficult for Marvel.
And I think one really hard line to draw in the sand is that like if the scripts were flipped, right? If we got a Dick Grayson dressed like this Starfire, people would lose their shit.
Bro, the community literally started making comments about Dick's butt, and now it's like a thing to the point Nicholas Scott put his butt out on the cover of our anniversary issue. Like, the fandom sexualized Nightwing more than DC did.
I think it also got included as a joke in Grayson, the book.
Yep.
Because Midnighter makes a comment of, oh, I know that ass kind of a thing. So I think it was kind of meta fan commentary that was kind of pulled into the character. And I think that it's a funny joke. And it's funny because of how absurd, of the absurdity of it. But, like you said, if they put, Nightwing in something like that, I would have just as much of a problem with it,
Mm-hmm.
That I think you can look cool and you can look badass, but kind of once you cross into the weird exploitation, it gets kind of awkward.
Yeah.
And I think
loses vision.
Yeah, and I think with this new 52 Starfire costume that we're looking at, I think costume in that style could look cool with the right body design, That I don't know what's going on with her stomach and her rib cage and her boob.
Yeah, she's like malnourished, but has more breasts than most women like enjoy having.
Yeah.
Hell, say what you will about Michael Turner, Travis. He did a version of Starfire in her OG suit that looked freaking gangsta, and like I'm about to drop it.
That.
And it's like that was included in the DC encyclopedias they put out for years because it's such a well done version of her old Marv Wolfman suit. So there's a way to make a girl look sexy without being exploitive.
I mean, I get that, but I don't know. Michael Turner's drawing, it's hard to escape that image that he left previously. True. Like he does really well. This is a really nice rendition of the first one. But on the same hand, I'm left like, man, what's with these boots?
What's with these boots?
What happened to her knees, though? Like, not how knees were. See, unfortunately for me, that when it comes to, looking at, costumes that are deemed exploitative and whatnot, I really start to critique body design after that. Because, when it comes to artists like, I'm going to name a name here, but when it comes to artists like J. Scott Campbell, I think
let's go. We here. Let's do it.
I think something that grosses me out about him the most is his body construction. Like, ew. I mean, he suffers from horrific same face syndrome. All of his women have the same faces, regardless of who the character is.
He makes Storm look like every woman in the room.
Yeah, and I always think it's fun too, because, something I'll do with Victoria is, when I get a ridiculous comic book, I'll open it up and I'll laugh about boob physics, is what I like to call it. Is that, women with comics, women in comics having big boobs, whatever, but just when those boobs defy physics and gravity, it's just hysterical. And it's so stupid and it pulls you up right out of the art and story. So, his boob physics are terrible, but his body construction is just kind of gross. And, I get that art is subjective, and I get that this whole conversation is subjective, and there are instantly, 17 bazillion people who disagree with everything we're saying on here. But this is our show, Ed, not yours, so we can say whatever we want.
A freaking man.
So, Scotch Mary.
I'm over here
like Scotch Mary.
And then like Ale James is just like, I don't give a fuck.
I mean, we've completely lost any and all structure in this episode, but it's kind of fun just to shoot the shit out of these things. And J. Scott Campbell's art, I think it's gross. Because
there was a point where I actually enjoyed this dude, and then it was like I started looking at all the women and I was like, bro, yo dudes look baller as hell, but then like, can you stop wrapping the whole costume around her boob, please, and like draw her normally?
See, with me, it's largely like, I feel like at this point in time, he does it to be gross. I don't think he's a pervy or creepy person or anything like that. For me, it's all about the art. I don't know enough about Campbell to form an opinion on his personality. I know he loves it when people shit talk his art online because it's free publicity for him.
Yeah.
But I don't like his body construction. Like, I think it's really gross. And
I think the one piece that in a while that I haven't hated by him was his Stanley tribute picture, because like not all the women looked horrible.
I mean, then there was the whole controversy with his Ironheart cover. Because in the original image, Riri had her stomach on full display, like, the stuff
when she's a teenager.
And she's like 15, and then there was enough backlash that he just covered over it with the Iron Man suit. Or with her Ironheart suit, excuse me. And I think... I don't know. Like, I think sexualization is different than sexy, if that makes any sense,
It's very different.
Look at Chris Anka in comparison to J. Scott Campbell. Sexy versus sexualization. And I think sexy is a lot more fun.
Bro, Chris Anka draws shirtless men like nobody else, and I fucking love it.
Oh yeah, I have his Black Cat cover, and oh my god, it is amazing. Let's see what Nick Robles has been doing. Kind of a beefcake fan art calendar of all the X-Men right now, and it has been really entertaining. I think the one he put out most recently is Dakin, and
can a brother get a link?
And I think, when it's done a certain way, it looks good. But, when it's... I feel like there is that imaginary line that's, meant to be sexy and cheesy, and then there's the line that just crosses into gross. And, it's one toe over the line kind of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
See, when you say that, I just found the line, but it's this Detective for Hire cover with Misty Knight on the front.
Okay.
But it's like she's not scantily clad, but those clothes are painted on.
Mary, can you give me this calendar, please?
It's really off.
Oh no, it's not an actual calendar. He's been releasing them like they were, those fireman calendars.
Is it like Twitter?
Yeah, it's on Twitter.
Can you spell that last name for me, please?
I think it's Robles. I meant to go to his table at C2E2, but there were so many people around it, I never actually got there.
Dope.
So I mean, like that's great for him. I'm glad his table was so busy that I wasn't able to get through. But like, I'm disappointed because I wasn't able to get to his table.
Sad Mary. Sad Mary is sad. But no, this was a very good venting episode for us, guys.
Yeah, I've got.
Oh, I got that cover. Let me drop it.
I have at least a couple more points that I want to try and hit because I mean
let's go.
We've completely derailed.
That's
the line.
See what I mean? That's the line.
I didn't eat her vagina in my face like that.
I like me some Misty Knight, but damn, man.
I'm liking this Dakin right here though. Hello, how you doing? Ooh.
But like, I don't know, even just comparing Misty Knight to this Dakin, I do feel like there is a difference, because we know the intent behind the Dakin art is that it is meant to look like one of those sexy fireman calendars.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found a sexy Fire Lady calendar at one point, but they were sold out.
Damn.
So close. I was so close. This was supposed to be meant to be like this deep discussion about, women and comic books, and we've just sat here and bitched about everything.
We sat here and bitched about the stupidity of men drawing women, and it's like, it's been kind of nice.
I mean, honestly, though, look at this shit. And
I know what, if certain people get their hands on this episode, it's going to be like, oh, this woman hates blah, 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 the typical shit that they throw around. And it's, I like sexy women in comics. I do. But I think, I know I keep repeating myself, but I think there's a difference between sexy and sexualization. And
most of.
I think sexualization, it gets to be a bit of a headache because it is so prevalent. And I think it is damaging to women because it's exploitation for, just bullshit. And I think it's damaging to men because it's usually really gross artwork. And I like to think, men are more than that.
Yes.
Yeah, because average niggas don't look like dick in here. Like, as you can see, case in point. Also, I found this Misty Knight that I had hopes for, and then I noticed it had nipple highlights, and now I've lost
Man, what? Oh, that's that.
It was cool until the shirt had nipple highlights.
What is this, Batman and Robin?
Oh dear Lord. Oh dear Lord. It's perfectly fine without the nipples.
Right. Like, guys, can you spare me?
Like, spare me the stupidity for like 2 minutes, please. Okay.
But I mean, it's touches like that
Yeah.
it takes a cool costume and makes it sexual because boobs, And I get that costumes and comic books, they're meant to be power fantasies and things like that. But yeah, it is so absolutely befuddling to me that
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm running out of articulate ways to put this if I've put it articulately at all.
You've done very well.
Like I said, Scotch Mary has been flying the plane on this episode.
I mean, I could put it in the best way possible, like that I could think of.
Shoot.
Go for it.
Maybe certain men should not have cave painting.
Damn. Bravo, sir. You are a gentleman and a scholar.
I'm choking on 12-year-old Scotch.
Oh, God.
And I mean, honestly, though, because, like, I'm trying to find something remotely modest for Misty Knight, and it's just not there.
Captain America Sam Wilson was tonight.
Try Fearless Defender. She looked pretty good in that.
Because Captain America Sam Wilson issue like 2 or 3 had a really cool like her behind Catwolf that looked kind of decent.
Yeah, I found a couple boob windows, like.
I think boob windows.
Highlight.
I think boob windows can be fun if framed in like a meta context, like with Power Girl. Is that these days it's largely kind of played as a joke because Gail Simone plays it as a joke. Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, they play it as a joke, and I met them at C2E2, and they're absolutely lovely, absolutely lovely.
Yes. So, is there like how do we want to wrap this one up, Mary?
Oh, Lord have mercy. I don't know. We'll have to go back and do a dignified episode later that's just not me, bitching about,
stupid men.
Sexualized. And it's not even stupid men. It's just, gross art choices. And, there are plenty of, men who draw these women and they draw them so sexy and so perfect. You've got Chris Anka and Adam Hughes and all of these other artists who do such a great job at making these women look sexy, but making them look powerful at the same time,
Well, if we had to put like this was the part 1 of us highlighting women on like an ongoing saga, how would you like to close this part 1 of like in a way?
I would want to close it by apologizing for trying to do a serious episode that we'll have to go back and do later. But if this is kind of part 1, just looking at the issues of sexy versus sexualization, that sexualization, I don't know. I feel like it does comics no favors. I feel like it pulls it out of being a serious medium to, you know, guns and boobs, I'd like to think comics have moved beyond that. You know, if you're doing guns and boobs, that's fine, but just make sure there's, you know, decent art and a story. Like, and I don't know, I see, if we had to water this episode down into a soundbite, I would say, you know, men drawing comics and the issues of sexy versus sexualization.
There we go. All right, we'll have to revisit this because this was fun, but like, yeah. All right, thank you, Mary. You are amazing.
We'll have to do the proper women in comics episode another time.
Most def. But like this was a good part one and a good like venting tool. We've been so stressed with everything going on in the world. We've had Comic-Cons being canceled. We have movies being pushed back because of this virus. It was nice to just take a couple sips and just relax.
I've had like a fifth of a bottle of scotch.
Whew.
Well, damn.
And I drink it neat.
That's how you're supposed to drink it.
That's how you know this episode got thrown off track.
I mean, like, honestly, I like my final comment on this is going to be, if you have something to say and you can't drink your scotch neat and it's not 12 years old like Mary's is now, shut the fuck up. Mary has bigger balls than you.
Oh, I love that. I love it so much.
All right, y'all. Don't forget that you can listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, YouTube, all those great things. Working on iHeartRadio and Pandora currently, but those are not available yet. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at PTP_podcast. And you can follow the website On Comics Ground on Twitter and Instagram at On Comics Ground. And check out the website where we put new reviews, opinion pieces, previews, solicitations all the time for you good people every weekday. For like, and until the virus kills us, we will carry on, my wayward son. So, hey, I'm sad. Supernatural has been pushed back too, so I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, so Travis, what is your closing statement for this episode? Or what was your last statement? Your closing statement?
I mean, I'll just expand on it further. Mary has more hair on her chest than anyone who's going to bitch about this episode. Just throwing it out there. The lines in the stands.
Oh my god. I love it.
Damn.
I love you, Travis.
I can't drink scotch like that. I'll fucking die.
Because I've been drinking Glenlivet tonight, and I'm gonna have to see if I can find another bottle. I want to see if I can find a 24-year-old bottle, but oof, those things are expensive.
Yeah, they are. Mary, what's your closing statement for the episode?
I meant to do a super serious episode about women in comics and the issues they face, but Scotch decided that I needed to do a Stitch and Bitch episode about, bad comic book art and costumes in relation to women.
Which is fair.
Which is fair. I think we all just kind of needed a vent session, but we will revisit, women in comics and, the structures they face and, why haven't more women written these big two books, even though quality writing knows no gender. Anybody can be a quality writer with enough work. So we'll revisit that in a slightly more sober conversation later.
Deaf, because I'm over here on like bottle 2 and I'm like, this was fun. My closing statement is thank you, Voodoo Ranger, for your amazing Imperial Ale. But also, a shout out to everybody who has worked on the Robin 80th anniversary issue. My heart breaks for people like Marv Wolfman who pour their heart into their work. It warms my heart. James Tynan the Fourth. All these amazing, freaking Adam Beecham wrote the best Tim Drake story ever, and I thank him for it. But just, please go pick up the 80th anniversary issue. We did a whole episode about it last week. Please go check that out. Support women in comics, because I really am frustrated with the current situation that we've been dealing with for the past 3-4 years of just idiot dudes acting like they know how to run shit and act like women can't be in comics when you got one of the baddest bitches in the room with us right now, and she doesn't put up with any of that shit.
Ah, shucks.
Oh, shucks.
So it's like, get over yourselves and let girls read these books because they've been reading them since before you were born. And we've been having them create the books since before you were born. So get over yourself. We will catch you folks right here on the next episode of Panel to Panel, where next week we'll be talking about the Wildstorm. So get ready for that amazing time. Peace out.